We have no sound yet.
Hello, people. I'm saying hello, Margie. Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry. Hello, Brian. Hello, Katarina. Hello, everybody. Juhi, Beth, Vincent, Sunny. There's Sunny. So, any questions? Start with questions, okay? Come on. Start the ball rolling. Questions.
Maybe if you talk about your experience in Copan.
What?
Maybe if you talk about your experience in Copan.
Copan.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sunny wanted to know what happened in Copan because Lama Zopa Rinpoche passed away on the 13th, and I was anyway going to Italy for an event, and then I decided I'd go on to Kathmandu after that and spend time at Copan for a couple of weeks just to be there, you know. So yeah, I mean, yes, it was very powerful. Good for me just to be there. Because first of all, anyway, normally I do my work wherever I go. I have my computer, but I left my computer in the aeroplane in England, and then I left all my connecting wires and plugs at the aeroplane in Kathmandu. So I had nothing to do, and so it was very moving. Actually, it was very moving. You know, it's like, you know, when people die in the West, it's grief and loss and the you know, the loss and the grief. But so of course people have that. People who are close to Lama Zopa. But it was so interesting because, you know, in this Tibetan Buddhist system, there's a strong focus on the future life. And so because he's the teacher, there was a strong emphasis on requesting him to return, you know. So then it was just this powerful, the monks in the monastery, hundreds of monks in the practices all day, every day, in the evenings, and the nuns in the 24 hours a day, and then people, and all the Westerners coming from around the world, different people. And there's, in the morning, 6:30 we had practice, and at 10 o'clock we had practice, and at 4 o'clock we had practice, and at 7 o'clock at night we had practice. So it was just nice to be there for that among my friends and everything. That's all I can say. Yeah, it was good to be there. But I know when I first heard that Lama Zopa had passed away, and I saw that morning, actually it was Jennifer's email was the one. I was doing my water bowls on my altar, doing my practice, and I saw Jennifer's email. And then I thought, what am I going to do? And then I thought, keep doing my practice. What else, you know? And the other one, of course, so maybe that's the one we have to think about, is impermanence. I think that's the biggest one, isn't it? As Pabonka Rinpoche says, this will happen to you, which means death. And of course, we do not want to think about death. We do not want to think, we don't think for 1 minute we're dying. And what they say is, and there's really, I think this is the one that's very powerful, is that when we can start to really kind of internalize the reality that we're impermanent, which intellectually we know perfectly, but the reality that we could die today always sounds hilarious to us, always sounds like shocking, like we're supposed to have a panic attack or something, you know? So why is this? What is it? I mean, we know intellectually we're going to die. Some people, you know, put their brain in the fridge and hope that they'll come back to life in another life when they fix up whatever that science is, you know. But we know we're not going to be here at some point, but we don't know it. This is what's fascinating. And this is the way, I think this is the way these delusions work, the way Buddhism would talk psychologically, that the imprint in is so strong, this grasping, as Lama Zopa calls it, is grasping at permanent me. It's a very deep instinctive belief. In the face of the logic that we know we're impermanent, look in the mirror every day, we see an older person there now, we know we're moving towards death. We're not surprised by that, but we don't, actually in our bones, we don't believe it. And that's what's fascinating. So all that does is just show how deeply we think things are permanent, meaning not changing. Permanent, not even meaning lasting forever, but somehow not changing. You know, like, I always use the example, you know, when two people, I remember reading a story about two people, and one of them, she said, we will be together until we are 80. So we should look at that, because here we're talking about ourself dying. So it's like believing I will be here until I'm 80. So what she based that on was the fact that at that time in the relationship, everything was going beautifully. So the same with us personally. If you're healthy, like we could be old, like I'm old, but I'm relatively healthy, you know? So because I'm healthy now, when we make the assumption therefore I'll be here tomorrow, and therefore the next day, and therefore the next day. So this person, because the relationship was good, meaning, this is the point now, because attachment's getting what it wants, which is nice things, nice feelings. Attachment's the real drive. Attachment is emotional hunger that only wants everything to be nice. So when attachment gets what's nice, because we actually instinctively can't bear the thought that it'll stop being nice, we assume it's permanent. That's the logic. That's what goes on inside. And it's all completely instinctive. So she assumed because they were in love and everything was perfect and the life was beautiful and the kids were there and the job was there and everything was wonderful. Because it's nice and because attachment can't bear the thought that it might change, we then impose permanence on it. It's literally a lie that our mind tells. But because we're doing this for so long, we believe it's true. She said, with certainty, we will be together until we're 80. And why she said that is because the intensity of the joy they were experiencing at that moment. That's utterly, I mean, you analyze it, there's not a fraction of logic. In other words, just because you feel healthy today, we assume you're going to live a long age. It's so irrational, but we have to analyze it like this. We have to analyze how irrational it is. Like even my friends on death row who've got a death date still believe they're permanent, you know. You don't, in other words, we don't feel impermanent. So this is where thinking about impermanence, and this is why the wake-up call, apart from anything else, the grief and loss of losing Lama Zopa and all that, for those of us who are close to him, all that's part of the learning. But the deepest one is this will happen to me. And it's because we don't ever think we are going to die. Other people die. And even then, when they're like people, like long distance out there, people in another war, people in a war zone, you kind of, yeah, they're dying, and ants are dying, and dogs are dying, and the people a bit closer to you are dying, like the people in your city. Oh my God, I'm from Melbourne. Look at the people dying in Melbourne. It's a bit closer, isn't it? And then there's your family, even more close, or your guru, even more close. But we don't get the wake-up call. This will happen to me. And so then we think, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Have a panic attack? No. In the beginning, we have a panic attack only because we don't believe we're going to die. So in the beginning, it's kind of scary. People say that. You start to really realize impermanence, you have a panic attack. But eventually, when we start to realize the reality that everything is in a state of change, it's just the way things are. I mean, Buddha's teachings about impermanence are really subtle. There's a gross level of impermanence, like computers break, you know, you lose your computer, you will die. That's a grosser level. But the subtle level is constantly working underneath. The very fact of something coming into being is the proof that it'll go out of being. It's really quite subtle. But because we're so attached to things being lovely, we do not want to bear the thought that it could change. So we say, I will be here till I'm 80. I'm going to live, look how healthy I am. I'm here till I'm 80. The relationship is divine. We will be together until we're 80. And then, of course, because we're so grasping at things as permanent, when, let's say, and in fact, this relationship, he did leave her, so she crashed into despair. And this is the trouble then. Now, this is the trouble of grasping at things as permanent. When things are beautiful, you can't bear the thought that it will change. But when it's bad, you can't imagine it will change. You can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's why people kill themselves. Because when the bad comes, you think it's going to last forever. So we're deluded in both ways, the good and the bad. So this is quite subtle, really. And it just needs thinking about every day, seeing the reality. This is Buddha's key point. It's surprising to us. He says the extent to which we're not in touch with reality, and there's different levels of reality, is the extent to which we suffer. And getting in touch with reality is what liberates us. This sounds hilarious, but it's really accurate when we can see it. So we have to get the wake-up call. So then instead of it causing you panic, oh my God, I could die today. Oh my God, I could die today. Oh my God, I could die today. Panic, panic. No. We internalize the reality that I could die today. And then the learning from that is, I must not waste it. I mustn't waste this opportunity. Because we believe we're permanent, then you get upset with your sister, you get mad at your son, you get crazy at the person down the road, you argue about it, you go on about it, you go on about it, you go on about it, as if it's going to last forever. But when you realize you're impermanent, you could die today, you just let go of it. It's foolish to worry about it. It's sort of like the example, it's so simple. You know, you go on a nice holiday, you go on a vacation for 2 days to a Divine Hope resort. So you don't say, oh, I'm not going to go to the resort, it's only 2 days, what's the point? No, you go for 2 days, and because it's so impermanent, because it's only 2 days, you actually make the most of it. You don't just lie in bed, well, I'll go for a swim next week. No, you've got to go swimming now. You've got to leave in 2 days. So when you realize something's impermanent, meaning not lasting long, you make the most of it. You don't grasp onto the rubbish. Like this woman in one class, she's freaking out all day, every day, she says, all the time, worried her husband would die. That's not how you think about impermanence. That's stupid, that's neurotic. She said, how can I live in the moment? I said, don't worry about living in the moment. Just know that he will die. So therefore, conclusion is, I mustn't waste the opportunity. And then if you wake up in the morning and he's still there, warm and toasty, it's a bonus. So if you wake up in the morning and you're warm and toasty, still haven't died yet, it's a bonus. Another 24 hours. So it gradually takes over, and then it becomes kind of integrated into our mind. And then it becomes a powerful teaching. The Lama says it's a powerful, already just realizing impermanence changes your life completely, because you realize life is so precious and you don't want to waste it because it could end at any moment. It's very brilliant. First level junior school, entry level realization. And that's the big learning for me, this one, you know. Of course, from Lama Zopa, wanting to return, all of that's important. The relationship with the Lama. But impermanence, change. I mean, I say all these words and I have conviction, but I don't believe I'll die. I don't believe I'll die today. I say it with, I know with certainty. I feel certainty I'll wake up in the morning. So it takes a while to get the realization, isn't it? But the conclusion from it isn't panic. The conclusion is I wasn't maced. I mustn't waste this precious life. So if you have got a good relationship, everything is going beautifully, you nourish it and you use it. And if it is going badly, it won't last forever. Things change. It takes a while, but it's profound. Huh? Yes, good, yes. Who's asking?
Beth in chat.
Yes, go on.
She said that before Lama Zopa Rinpoche, she said that Lama Zopa Rinpoche may have taken rebirth in a body that has already been born.
That's a possibility, yeah.
Prior to his death.
That's right.
But how is that possible? Because doesn't the consciousness join the egg and sperm at conception?
Yes, of course it does, typically, yeah, but when you're a holy being, you've got realizations. Already the lowest level bodhisattva can manifest in 100 different bodies simultaneously. So that's perfectly possible for them to do that. They can manifest 100 bodies right at the second. If there's a person who's is at lowest level bodhisattva, is capable, hear the words, is capable of joining their consciousness with 100 eggs and sperm simultaneously. And they could do that earlier. I mean, there's this Lama Zopa Rinpoche, for example, he was reborn, he was born, he was conceived, he decided while he was in the previous body as Kunsang Yeshe the yogi, this is what they say, he decided to be reborn to that particular woman. So he split his consciousness off, or whatever you want to say, and went into that new egg and sperm. That's easy, Beth. They're capable of that. But typically normal people, yeah, we can't do that. The egg and sperm will be joining with the consciousness at the time of conception. Yes, that's right, exactly. When you're high being, it's different. Yeah, go on, another question. Yes, talk to me.
Question on karma.
Yeah, go on.
Creating our.
Yeah. Yeah.
Question on karma and creating our own reality.
Yes.
Anything you can share on how we might think about the timing of karma? In other words, if we plant a certain seed.
When it will ripen, you mean?
Yeah, or just, variability across different types of thoughts or actions or words, and just how to think about, still getting my head around the overall concept of it, but then how to think about timing and any guidance you can offer on that.
Oh, okay. So I think this is why the only way to the bigger picture point of view of karma, which is always a shocking thing in the West, because it's a brand new concept to us, that actually it's a natural law. No one runs it. It's just the way it is. The Buddha has observed this is the law that runs the universe, that every consciousness, every living being does necessarily millisecond by millisecond by millisecond by having thoughts, and then by doing actions of body and speech on the basis of those thoughts. That's the process of sowing seeds and bringing fruits. So it's intensely, insanely complex then. I'm even just trying to work out exactly what seed will grow at what point when you put this amount of nourishment on and that pound of sunshine. It's impossible to think, even just in ordinary botany. But the law, and so the thing is to think of it as a law. It's logical and natural. So therefore can eventually be cognized. So the principle is the main point. So if you've got a specific question, so tell me.
So rather with the idea of, clearly there's the concept that seeds planted in this lifetime could sprout in a future lifetime.
Yes.
So
mostly, in fact. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Let's discuss this one.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. Okay. Good. I understand. Okay. So basically, it's like this. I think it's a bit like this. So here you are. What's your name?
Joe.
Who?
Joe.
So here's Joe at the time of the past death. About 7 weeks before you found your way to your present mother's fallopian tube. I presume you were old-fashioned conception, right? In a fallopian tube, not in a petri dish.
Right.
All right. So let's assume that. So then what happened is, there's this consciousness where who knows, or whoever you were before, Mary or Fred or who knows what, mosquito, an elephant, whatever. This consciousness is now, this package of that past life is now finishing. And then at the time of death, certain conditions arise that trigger a particular one of the billions of karmic seeds in your mind. So the one that was triggered, that was the one that caused you to go to your present mother's human womb, was a very strong, virtuous karmic seed of non-harming, in particular non-killing. So that particular seed, due to the conditions of the right time, the right place, the way you were, and 1,000 other conditions, all triggered, somehow all became the conditions that enabled that particular seed to arise. The particular one that enabled it to arise was your mind would have been fairly peaceful at that time, because that enabled you to trigger a virtuous karmic seed in one of your millions of karmic seeds. Now, at the same time, the other 3 ways that karma ripens, that have now literally ripened as your life, one is the seed that caused you to have this male human body, that you ran to that particular human mother, the egg and sperm, your conscious joined the egg and sperm, and then due to past karma, you got a male body. But within that body, that's the first karma that ripened, the type of body you get, then you got a mind. So all those tendencies at the time of your past death, at the time of before you stop breathing, all the seeds that would determine your personality, whether Hitler or Mother Teresa, they were triggered, and they're among all your seeds in your mind, that they became the seeds that would then produce Joe's personality, his tendencies. He's good at this and bad at football and good at math and being good at angry and good at killing and good at love or whatever. Your personality traits, basically, not coming from your mummy and daddy, but your own tendencies. They would have been triggered, okay? The next ones would have been called experiences similar to the cause, and they're all the seeds that would have been triggered from your mind that produce the experiences and the relationships you have in this life. And the 4th one is even the way the very physical world impacts upon you. So in that literal sense, you've got the body, the mind in that body, all your experiences in relation to people you meet in this life, and even the way the physical world impacts upon you. Every one of those, every instance of those is the fruit of seeds you planted in your mind that were triggered at the time of your past death. So in that sense, all those seeds those seeds are now manifesting every second in your daily life of the life that is yours. But it's like this, you're doing lots of things in this life as well. So what you could say, like, for example, like this, let's say you got bored and there's a tendency to steal in there, but it doesn't really ripen until you're 6 or something. And one day you see something, oh, I think I'll steal. Then 2 days later you get stolen from. So typically people think, oh, well, that's karma, that the stealing today and 2 days later it caused me to get stolen from. Well, no. What happened is that tendency was in your mind, it came to the surface, you stole. But that stealing, what it would have done, it can't ripen in 2 days' time. It's not possible. But what it did was it triggered another seed in your mind that cause you to be stolen from. But so it's like the things we do in this life nourish the seeds in our mind. They don't necessarily cause directly certain things.
So in the creating our own reality, creating our own reality, it may not be that it's new seeds that we're planting today.
Okay.
But it might be it's triggering sort of...
Every second, yeah. So every second that you're doing things right now, all those seeds will ripen in the future. So you can go there for 50 years and steal, and nothing will ever happen bad to you, because you've got such good experience similar to the cause karma from past non-stealing that you never get caught, and you don't ever get stolen from. So you've got masses of karma to be not stolen from the past, and that ripens every day as not getting stolen from. But you're creating incredible negative seeds from stealing every day that will ripen only in stealing from in a future life. So everything we do now will ripen in the future, but everything we do now nourishes certain other seeds to then ripen. So if you're being kind every day and forgiving, that can nourish your past forgiveness seeds for people to then forgive you. So it's really what we're doing in that is like nourishment on the seeds we've already planted.
That subtlety is really interesting.
Huh?
That subtlety on this nourishing.
That's what it is. It's massive.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's huge, really. So then, because when you realize, like I always think of what's his name, Mr. Trump. There he is, being endlessly accused of lying, accused of jumping on girls, accused of, look at all the things that people accuse him of. Maybe the karma will run out one day, who knows? But it's like, he even jokes that he's untouchable. That means the virtuous karma he's got from past lives is so strong to be seen and approved of and not get caught. Do you understand? But yeah, that's from a different set of karma altogether. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So you can have the karma to steal, but never get stolen from. You can have the karma to never steal, but you'll get stolen from, because they're both from the past. But whatever we do now will have its future results, but acts as nourishment for other karmic seeds to ripen every day. That's the way to think about it, I think. It's like, putting fertilizer on the plants that are already there, That's right. So stealing today is like fertilizer on another seed that wouldn't have ripened as you being stolen from if you hadn't stolen today. But that seed had to be there to be nourished. Because you can't get stolen from if there's no seed there. So the stealing today nourishes that seed to be stolen from. It just brings it up quicker. Good as well. Good karma can be like that as well. Do you understand? And the thing is to keep remembering, we're not used to religion being this way, that it's a natural law. No one created it. No one's running it. That to me is the most powerful idea. Like Dalai Lama said, it's like self-creation. I think it's very delicious. And it's all there in the literature. It's all developed, it's all there, laid out and explained, It's fascinating. Do you understand? Good point, Joe. Thank you. What else is there? Sonny, somebody else, darling? Yes, talk to me. Happy to see you, sweetheart.
Thank you.
Good.
I was just wondering, so there's the karma of our actions, and how is that different from the karma of our thoughts? So,
I understand. Yeah, sure. We have body, we have mind, which is the starting point, isn't it? But then we have actions based upon the mind of speech and body that is more powerful because they impact upon others. That's the point. That's why the very first level of practice, Buddha's not even bothering to look at our mind yet. He says just control the servants of the mind. So don't, if you might have the thought to kill, well, don't kill, please. You might have the thought to steal, then don't use your hands to steal. And that way the karma's still there, but not nearly as powerful. That's why the first level is least control behavior, because that future brings terrible future results. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So, and that's why we shouldn't be scared of our mind, be delighted that if we don't follow through on the thoughts, that's fantastic. But don't be nervous, because the other thing about thoughts, our minds are crazy, they're uncontrolled. But just because you're having angry thoughts, this is another important point. Just because you're having angry thoughts, okay, you can have, there's two things. Let's say I'm angry with my boyfriend, Joe, and I come to you as my friend and I moan and complain and that Joe this and Joe that, and you agree he's a creep and how dare you live with him, Robina, blah, blah, blah. That's increasing anger. But if I'm working on my mind and I come to you crying and I'm explaining to you what's going on, it's only because I want you to help me work with my anger. That's not being angry. That's very different. Do you see my difference? See the difference? If I'm buying into the anger, that's when you create the anger karma in your mind. But I might have anger, but I'm struggling with it and working with it and crying about it. And I'm still angry, but I'm working with it. That's very different because I'm not buying into it and not increasing it. So we shouldn't be scared about our minds. We should want to have the vomit come up and look at it and see it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's a big point, actually.
One of the things that I do is I'm very critical and judgmental. So
in your mind?
Yes. So if my friends.
Yeah, I know. Join the universe, honey. At least you see it.
Of myself.
Everyone does it. Yeah, that's right.
And strangers.
That's right.
And so I'm just saying, like, okay, you know, I see someone and I think, oh, they're this and this and
That's
that.
right, that's right.
But, you know, so.
You don't say it.
I don't say, you know, I don't do anything about it, but I, you know, but I worry about it.
I know, well then okay, then don't worry about it. What you're seeing is what everybody in the universe does. We all look on the world as if we're saints and everybody does that. And to see it is marvelous. So see it, notice you do that automatically because we're self-centered, and just catch it and go, oh wow, this is ridiculous. At least I don't say it. And then regret it, and don't worry about it, regret it and not buy into it. It's just an opinion you gave yourself. Look at her with her ugly hat. Then, oh, come on, mate, shut up, Robina, give it a break. It's okay, her hat's fine. You kind of, but let it come. They're going to come because they're habits, but you don't buy into them. You kind of make it more loose. Don't be scared of them. Don't be. Do you understand? It's very important. Because the thoughts are uncontrolled.
So Venerable, when we have these thoughts,
Yes.
these negative thoughts.
Yeah, that's right. About others.
These judgments, these negative
Yes,
thoughts.
yes.
Are we then, is that more karma that we're?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The difference is
But
huge.
we're just thinking it.
No, but what? Okay, if you're believing the thoughts and you're growing them and you're believing and she's a creep and she did this and I believe it and she's a creep, then you're creating negative karma. But if you're seeing the thoughts pop out of the blue because of habit, you go, give it a break, Sheila, it's all right, give it some space and you work with it. That's very different. It's like seeing a weed in the ground and nourishing it, or seeing a weed in the ground and trying to work with it and trying to get it out. You don't be scared of the thoughts, just don't buy into them. Can you hear me?
That weed is creating karma?
This is my point, Sheila. I have to say it again to you. I have to say it again. You've got a weed in the ground and you're growing it. You're happy, that's called your anger. And you're nourishing it and you're angry, yeah, this and he, that. That's creating the negative karma of being angry. Now, anger pops up out of nowhere and you're shocked by it. Do you understand? Can you hear that? Listen to me, listen.
Yes.
With kindness. It comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? Thoughts come out. You don't invite. You don't say, "Oh, I'm going to have angry thoughts now." They come, right? But the wisdom in you is listening and not believing the story, and you're thinking, "This is ridiculous, Sheila. I don't want to have those thoughts. They're really strong, but I try not to believe them." That's not creating negative karma. That's called purification. You with me? But we're scared of our thoughts. We set them in stone. Can you hear now what I'm saying? I mean, there you are with the weed and you're working on it and trying to stop nourishing and you're trying to see what it is exactly. You don't just ignore it. You don't want the weed just to go away. You've got to pull it out. They're very different experiences. So don't be scared of our thoughts. Our minds are uncontrolled. They come automatically. Like I said, I've never met a person who says, I can't stop thinking good thoughts. No such person unless they're a bodhisattva. Do you understand? So our biggest one is not be scared of our thoughts. And that's why, depending on our personality, some people aren't angry people who shout and yell. So all we want to do is push them away and deny our thoughts. This is a nightmare because we can't bear our own thoughts. They scare the life out of us. We've got to be courageous and see them and hear them and label them. We talked before, label them accurately. Don't be scared of them. But it's not believing in them is the point. The anger just comes, the jealousy comes, old stuff, you know. Be glad you're seeing your mind. It's hard, but that's the job we have to do. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's hugely different. That's why there's this misconception about, oh, I've got to be mindful. I've got to just sit there and be mindful. All the mind goes away. So no, it's just so ridiculous. It's too naive. It's too simplistic, you know. Because if you can't see the weed, how can you know what to pull out? Not just bury the weed away. That's what we want to do. Make it all look lovely. Got to see it nakedly for what it is. You understand? And it takes courage. And that's why the key thing is to have this bigger picture view in the Buddhist one, which is amazing. It's not the view in the West. That our mind is innately pure. Meaning that the delusions, the neuroses are not intrinsic to us. They're not at the core of our being. They're just kind of like embellishments we've added into the mind, but they're not our true nature. This is encouraging. You don't have to be scared of them. To have confidence in our positive, because the virtues and the goodness, the Buddha would say, they're our true nature. That's why, like I said before, we're in our discussion, not only not follow the attachment, but grow the opposite thoughts, the positive ones, you know. So important. Was there something else there, Sunny? Anybody, darling?
Yep. question,
Yeah, let's go.
question in chat?
Yes.
From Mary.
Hello, Mary. Talk to me,
Is that
sweetheart.
why in this life of Buddhist practice we practice?
I can't have to start again, sorry.
Is that why in this life of Buddhist practice we practice dedicating over and over to create seeds to ripen?
That's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, let me think about that. No, I think that the meaning of dedication, the way I understand it, okay, at the beginning of a practice, it's sort of like at the beginning of your little session in the garden, you're thinking, I'm going to do some gardening, I'm going to grow some positive seeds, I'm going to pull out the weeds. Why? So I can have a magnificent garden, which is the kind of Buddha, so I can be a benefit to others. That's your motivation. So that at the end of your gardening session, you've done a great job, you pull all the weeds out, you did all this planting of seeds and goodness, then you remember your motivation and you say, why have I grown all these seeds? Why have I done this gardening session? So I can have a magnificent garden, so I can give it to others. That's what dedication is. So it's just reminding yourself of why you've done some virtuous actions so that you offer it to others. That's all. That's what dedication is. And that
I meant to motivation and dedication.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly, Mary.
You
Exactly. Motivation, dedication, like broken record.
Yes. Is that why we're encouraged as Buddhists to do it over and over again, to
I think
give?
so. Yeah, because you
thoughts.
motivate to give the seeds, you're doing it for the sake of others, and then you dedicate for the sake of others as well. And then that's the way you get the results also. It's like the bonus is you also get the results. Because the tendency can be, I motivate to get out of samsara, and then I don't dedicate, I'm going to get out of, get all self-centered and possessive. So it's a powerful way to cut both ego grasping and self-centeredness. It's very delicious. You understand,
Yes.
Mary? Yeah. Good.
I absolutely, I'm someone that lived with great resentment, and giving me even a simple mantra like may all sentient beings be free from suffering. As soon as that, this sounds childish, but as soon as that thought hits my head, I immediately say that. And if I can bring myself to the generosity of the person who I'm resentful of or annoying, I'm able to mention that person's name, and guess what? My resentment dissolves.
There you go.
It's like
Well done,
common
Mary.
sense.
It's common sense, honey child. You're absolutely right. Dead right, Mary.
I love it.
Good on you.
Much.
Well done, girl. Good. Who else is there? Please, questions, people. Dearest people, questions. Yes. Come on, darling. Diego, go on. Go, darling.
I wanted to ask you this last time that I came, but I was hesitant, so I'm asking now. Could you tell us a little bit about the relationship with your teacher, with your heart teacher, and how you met him, and whether it was easy or time?
I understand,
hard?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was 31 or something, and I'd been 10 years of intensive political activity, First I'd been a Catholic, then I was a hippie, then I was a communist, then I was a radical black politics, then I was a feminist, all in the 60s and 70s, going through this process very intensively, looking for a way to see the world, I think, Then I wanted something spiritual again. And I did a bit of TM, and I did this and did that. Then I bumped into these Tibetan lamas, Lama Zopa. I was about 31, about 10-year process, okay? So I remember I knew I wanted a spiritual path. So I went to this class, this course, this intensive 2 months retreat. And basically really liked Lama Yeshe was teaching and Lama Zopa was teaching. So Lama Zopa was teaching the Lam Rim. He had an intensive 1 month retreat. And this has been 1976, so there'd been a couple of courses already, 3 or 4 years, 5 years, 6 years actually, from Courtin Monastery, that the Lama started traveling. And I remember hearing Lama Zopa teach. You could tell he was a virtuous person. You could tell he was a holy being. You could tell, I didn't use those words then, but you could tell he was impeccable, But I didn't understand his words. I mean, I understand his English, but and I was really clear, this arcane Middle Age, this arcane medieval way of talking. I mean, the way that Lama Zopa talked would be exactly the way that Tsongkhapa would have talked in the 14th century, because Tibet is an interesting point. What kept it so rich was that no one went there. They weren't very friendly to their neighbors. They lived in their own little kind of world, which served Dharma well because it was nourished and encouraged. But it stayed medieval, not to mention Indian before that, 2,000 years. So, but I persevered. So I knew there was something there. Then Lama Yeshe would come in the evenings and give a talk, and I'd sigh with relief because he talked in a way that just made complete sense. Because somehow Lama had this ability to talk like a modern person. I always joked and thought he was born as a hippie, but he kind of pretended to be a Tibetan because he just knew how to talk in a hippie way to hippies, to the modern Western people. It was extraordinary. And I sort of sighed with relief because it made sense. And he talked experientially about the Dharma, you know, the mind. That's when I really understood that the mind was the point. I didn't get that from Lama Zopa at all. It was more the philosophy. So I remember liking Lama Zopa, feeling very respectful towards him, but he was like too distant for me, too high. I couldn't get hold of him. But Lama really grabbed my heart, you know. I remember after the first course, I went back home, and I really liked Lama Yeshe. But I was embarrassed to use the word guru. I mean, I'd been this radical feminist about the most disgusting thing you do is have a male guru. So I said to him, one day the penny dropped, and I said to my sister Polly, I've got a guru, but don't tell anybody, you know. I was ashamed. So something came in clear to my mind about Lama Yeshe. For example, Lama Yeshe first, actually. I mean, I knew I wanted a spiritual path. I knew I wanted a way of seeing the world, but I never thought of it. I never thought I wanted a teacher. No, I had no concept like that. Also, I was very proud, and it's a good thing. I thought I'd do it myself. I'm doing the job, and it's true. You do the job. You do it yourself. But I remember when this penny dropped, I went back to the next year, saw Lama, and kind of informed Lama. I didn't know you're supposed to ask. I informed him he was my guru. I didn't use the word guru. I was too ashamed, too embarrassed, too proud. I said I respected him. And he said, I know, dear. So the point is that, first of all, so that was the first time. And that was huge for my mind. Because what happened straight away, and this is the thing for me, what happened, it was the first person in my life, actually. No doubt it was the first person in my life that I, how to say it? First person in my life that I respected to know my mind. I hadn't thought of those things before. I never thought of the mind before. I never thought of that. It was the first person. And it was very strong for me. And I trusted him. So I'd done my checking. I did all my due diligence like they tell you should after the year, you know, and then I decided. And then I could see almost immediately something had shifted in my mind. That something Lama said shocked me about my own mind. And it was like then there was the beginning of what I could see would be the relationship. I mean, when you say a relationship with a spiritual teacher, like you say a relationship with your music teacher, you commit to a music teacher, then what you're doing is you're opening yourself to that person. You're opening yourself. You've done your due diligence. You've checked on the reputation. You've checked on their students. That's the correct thing to do. And then as soon as you connect in your heart, please, would you teach me music? That's pretty powerful. It means you decided that person is the one you want to help you play music. That's exactly what it is. So the work is your side. Lama Yeshe was qualified all the time. But until I decided I wanted him to show me, and I didn't know the word, show me my mind, but that's the job of the teacher, you know? So the thing was with Lama Zopa, so then Lama Yeshe became my teacher. And I also worked for him. I mean, I worked for this organization as well as him being my spiritual teacher, which means I didn't see him often. I hardly ever saw him. But in your practices, you know, you do your practices and you see the Buddha. There's these practices where you practice visualizing the guru as the Buddha and so on and so forth. And I was working for him as well. He was my boss, you know. So I thought about him every day and wanted to please him and so on and so forth. So then Lama Yeshe, then I went to Courtin a year later, 2 years after I met them. 18 months after I met them, I went to Courtin and became a nun. Decided before that I'd become a nun. So I went to Courtin. So then I asked Lama Yeshe, could I become a nun? And he then sent me to Lama Zopa on New Year's, and it was New Year's 1978, February. And I wondered why I was upset. I wanted him to do it. So anyway, Lama Zopa, he sent me to Lama Zopa, and Lama Zopa gave me a name and everything. And then I saw Lama Yeshe in the kitchen later, and I said, did you give me my name, Lama? And he said, no. He said, Lama Zopa's qualified. It was very funny, actually. So anyway, so Lama Zopa was there, but I didn't see him as my teacher. So then when I went to Dharamsala the same year, 1978, and I did a retreat, 3-month intensive Lamrim Vajrasattva retreat. Typically we do that, then you do a course and you Lamrim course and you go to Dharamsala and do a Vajrasattva retreat. So I did this intensive 3-month retreat. And during that retreat, I had this very vivid dream. a whole group of us were at the Nalanda Monastery ruins in India, and Lama Zopa was there, and he called me out, and he put his text, his long folio text they have wrapped in cloth, he put his text over one of my shoulders, and he put his robe over my other shoulder, and he said to follow him out. So it was a nice dream, and I told one Lama I knew in Dharamsala. And he said, oh, that's the Lama who'll lead you to enlightenment. And I was very surprised because I felt in my heart Lama Yeshe was my teacher. So I knew intellectually that he was also my teacher, my root guru. I knew that. But it took me 10 years to recognize. It was there in my head. Intellectually, I knew that dream was clear. But all that period, I was working with Lama Yeshe, and then by 1984, 83, when Lama Yeshe passed away, and then all that was left was Lama Zopa, and I felt it would be upset because it wasn't Lama Yeshe. But I had always, this dream was in my mind, and I knew I had to create the cause. I had to nourish that relationship in my mind, not physically. I had to do something in my mind by practicing and requesting and wanting for the conditions to come together for me to recognize Lama Zopa was my teacher, my Lama. So I worked away and did all these practices and had a couple of meetings with him, and he just always just left me alone, left me alone. So I was working and working and working. And then after I'd finished my first job, which was 10 years from the time I met them, which was working for Wisdom Publications, and I'd finished that job, I was in Australia, and I did a retreat with Lama Zopa and a bunch of people in New Zealand. This is 10 years later, after that dream. And I was in the centre of New Zealand, and then suddenly Lama Zopa called me up to his room. And the karma must have ripened, because he said, because I didn't know what to do. I'd given up this job, you see. I had no idea what I was going to do next. Then he said, go to Sydney and teach. I always think of it as, I always say this, that fresco of Michelangelo, of God pointing his finger. That's how I remember it. Lama Zopa says, go to Sydney and teach. That's how I remember the dream. That's how I remember this time. So then he picked me up and started, and then the trouble starts, of course, because you start to see your mind, So that do for a story. Okay, thank you so much. But I'm not trying to romanticize it, because, I think I can say with certainty that without that person in front of me, and I think it's the same for cooking, music, or anything else, as Lama Yeshe says, the Buddha is dead. The Four Noble Truths will only be meaningful for you when you, and this is my words, when you hear it from a person in front of you. That's the teacher, that's the mentor, that's the guru, that's the Lama. It's logical. My mother was a classical musician, okay? Where did she get her music from? She played Bach, right? Bach's dead 400 years before, but she played Bach. She embodied Bach. Where'd you get it from? Her teacher. Where'd they get it from? And you track them back in an unbroken chain of real human beings embodying Bach right back to Bach. That's lineage. That's a teacher. It's logical. It's not just spiritual. We understand this, So we need one of them. And as Paponka Rinpoche says, choose your guru very carefully. You're going to end up like them. I like my favorite line in the whole of Paponka. So I think I can't imagine being a Buddhist without these examples in front of me. And we can have many of them, of course. Because why? It's very simple. They use the word devotion, and it's so clear. It's so, again, it's not spiritual, it's logical. Devotion, like, Sheila's got a son. She is devoted to her son. We use that word. I mean, her heart is open to her son. It's a wonderful quality. Of course, with us, you mix it with attachment, that's when the problems come, But the devotion part. So here, I wanted devotion. I wanted to be devoted to Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, my other teachers. What that means is I want my heart to be open. What's that mean? Not deluded, not attachment, not anger, not depression, not arrogance, not jealousy, not low self-esteem. They constrict our mind. But when they are temporarily not there, then virtue can take its place. Love and compassion and devotion and humility and patience. Then when they are prevailing, your heart is wide open. And you can receive the blessings, receive the teachings, whether it's your mother teaching you cooking or whether your guru telling you about the mind. You receive it directly, nothing blocking you. It's logical, It's the quickest way to learn, it's obvious. You can read books about cooking till the cows come home. You have one person show you how to make a cake. It's immediate, you know. It's really logical. There you go. What do you think? Okay. Good, yeah. Yes, yes, Sonny. What, darling?
For Beth Martin
Beth, yes.
in chat,
Yes.
please ask Venerable Robina if possible. When I don't like people, if I mock them behind their back because they have a tendency which I don't like, and it's delusional, and I don't have a lot of that particular flavor of delusion. How do I work with that? Am I creating very bad karma? I can't see much positive in them to counter it.
No, you just, like I said before to Sheila, you hear the thoughts, the mind is uncontrolled, the critical mind, we love to criticize other people, it's automatic. So you hear the critical thought and you catch it, and you go, well, that's interesting, Beth. I just said that person is a creep. I didn't like the way she said something. The wisdom in you pops up and then says, well, that's interesting. I just said that about that person. Well, you know what, Beth, don't believe it too strongly. Just let it sit there. That's one solution. Let the thought pop up, you can't help it. Old habits die hard, but you don't believe in it. You give it less power. But if you start believing in it and you repeat it to other people, that's when you make it strong. So you hear the thought pop up, thousands of thoughts pop up, but we give them less power. That's the great skill we have to learn, not to be afraid of all these thoughts, not to set them in stone. So if your wisdom pop up, your wisdom thoughts, your kind thoughts, your intelligent thoughts, and they can argue with that negative thought. You don't have to force yourself. If you can't still think of anything good about the person, you just leave it there. You just leave it there. You just leave it there. That's the answer. One of the answers, Beth. What else is there? Who else? Yes, sweetheart. Yeah.
I was just thinking, I think the Dalai Lama said that once that our enemies are our best teachers. And I was wondering, like, how to work with that.
Yeah, that's a really, this is all part of the more advanced practices in the compassion wing. And as the Pabonka Rinpoche said, to do these kinds of practices really properly, we need to be a suitable vessel. So put it like this, if you haven't even begun any practice at all, and you don't even know your own mind, and you're sitting there in a crummy relationship where you are a victim and people are abusing you, then you suddenly hear that this abusive husband is your guru, you won't know what the hell they're talking about. So you've got to be a suitable vessel, which means you've got to know your own mind. You've got to know that anger and attachment are really strong in your mind and they're your enemies. You already got to have done some practice. So when you understand that on the Bodhisattva path, there's this radical approach, you're trying to smash the tendency to be self-centered, which is, it's just powerful. There's attachment in general, which wants to get what I want, but the particular outcome of attachment here is to put me first. So we're trying to smash that very directly. So when a person's mean to you, that's it's like a bullet, right bullseye on exactly that. Because so a person's rude or wrong or bad to you, that's exactly, they are your best guru because they're showing you your ridiculous mind. They're showing you your anger, you're showing you. But you need to have done work to get to that point. Because if you're still in that abusive relationship, that's not your practice, baby. Get my point? Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. That's the point. They're your best guru because they're showing you your mind. That's the point. You understand?
I'm trying to work with that because I did ask you a question before, and similarly, which is, I think you were telling us that there's no blame. There's no blame in the world for our condition. So that's for me is very difficult. To live without blaming. Like.
I missed that point. What do you mean live without blaming? I don't get it.
So I had a very, very traumatic experience a few years ago. I was walking through the park and I was assaulted by a very angry person.
Okay.
And, and I know the person is mentally ill.
Yeah, sure.
So, but it was very traumatic.
Yes, of course.
I am trying to work with my trauma and not blaming.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Angry
with this guy. Okay.
It was actually a woman.
A woman. Okay. So then angry. So tell me the analysis you do to help you stop doing that then. What's the analysis?
My analysis is that she's angry and mentally ill. And so she, it's
She's out of her mind, basically.
exactly
Right, exactly.
I mean, you know, there are moments where I blame myself, but then I kept thinking, she doesn't know me. I mean, you know, she doesn't know me, so how could I?
That's right.
You know, how could I have been, you know, like, you know, like sometimes I would think, oh, I was attacked because I am this or that. Or
No, I know
and-
exactly.
But she doesn't know me. So
No, I know.
obviously,
But see, this is where, I mean, also, this is where the Buddhist view of karma comes in, you know. If the view of karma makes sense to you, that everything that happens to you, good and bad, can't be an accident, can't be random. Does that view make sense to you? Do you think about the karmic one much or not? Because that's the explanation. I mean, usually in the Western view, because you believed your mother made you and there's no you before your mum, then of course there's no logic in this. It's just life is full of random events, isn't it? No wonder we get panic attacked, no wonder we get angry, because bad things happen, but good things happen too. We can't find the logic to those either, but we don't mind the good things, you understand? So if you have the view of karma, that's up to you, whether that's a useful approach or not. But if it's not, then the other one is really, if you're trying to work on your mind, which you are, then every time something does something bad to you, it's triggering your anger, isn't it? So then you know that anger is your problem. Then how could you fix the problem if you don't know you have it? So if in that sense, she was one of your best teachers. But you got to get to that point. You can't force it. And that means, and then by looking at your anger, you're fixing it. Do you understand? I mean, there's always a story about Tisha. His cook was so angry and mean, and then people said, why don't you get rid of him? He said, how else would I know I'm angry if I didn't have him? So if you're really working on your mind, it's a bit like if you try to go to the gym, you welcome the puffing and panting. You welcome the toughness of you understand? You're glad because it's showing you what you have to conquer. So the same here, mentally. But we have to really have confidence in that you want to conquer attachment and conquer anger. Because if you conquer anger and attachment, someone harming you is just give you a broken nose. It won't give you any trauma. Do you understand? And that's shocking for us in the West. We really don't believe that. But if you had realizations, if you had bodhicitta, you might have got a broken nose from this crazy lady, but you wouldn't have been upset. Do you understand that? Theoretically. You understand? So if you're really working on your mind, we're glad for the opportunity to see our silly old mind, you know. Thank you for showing me. Meanwhile, get out of her way. She's a maniac. You understand? That's a tough one.
yeah. I mean, do you remember, you know, in South Carolina, the young man who went into a black church and killed people,
I heard that.
people?
Yeah.
And then in court, one of the sisters or the relatives of one that somebody killed, she went and she said, "I forgive you.
There you go.
I forgive you." You know, and it's just shocking. To me, it's shocking.
That's right, exactly. No, it's fascinating, isn't it? And that's very much the Christian teaching, isn't it? I remember. No, it's true. I know it's always shocking to hear that, isn't it? And I have a story too, similar. This friend of mine, Andre, and he happens to be black, in North Carolina. We worked together with people in prison. We did anyway. And his boy was killed, stabbed to death in a bar. And then we had this conference where he was talking. It was more about restorative justice. Restorative justice, is that what they call it?
Yes.
That's right. And then this woman, happened to be white, who became a Christian because her daughter had been raped and murdered. So they were discussing their responses to it. Well, Andre, as being a Buddhist, he was asked on the television news that night, what do you feel about the murderer of your boy? And he was in tears and he said, how could I not have compassion for him? His suffering is only just begun. I mean, that's intense, right? Because he knows, he works with these boys in prison. So he knows, he automatically had compassion. But the Christian woman, she said, the boy who murdered her, some white boy raped and murdered her daughter, who was 16. And she said, he wanted to meet him. So she met him and he was so happy, wanting her forgiveness, because he told her that before he's out of his brain on drugs, he'd raped the girl and now he's going to shoot her. And before he shot her, he told the mother that she looked him in the eye and said, I forgive you, and God does too. And then she shot him. And then he shot her. That's pretty intense, isn't it? You hear these stories. I mean, it's just so encouraging to get to that without having just rage and despair, It's very amazing, isn't it? Unusual. I know, it's very extraordinary. You hear stories like that a lot, isn't it? And mostly in the world, people don't understand it, just think they're crazy, just think they're stupid, idiotic, Because we honor anger, don't we? I think it's healthy to be angry and out of our brain, We've got to know where we're at. We can't pretend something. Do you understand? So you working through your trauma. Have you worked through it? You're kind of dealing with it? That's good. God, I've got to, wait a minute. No, wait, I've got to be somewhere. What I told, what time is it?
It's 2:35.
I've got to go. I know I'm only cheating you of time, but I do talk fast, so you got your money's worth. I have to go. I'm so sorry. So thank you, Sean.
Thank you. It's half-hour journey.
Okay, good. Oh, I've got a bit longer then. Only half an hour. Oh, I can talk longer. I've got to go. I've got to be there by 3. I've got to be west 21 10th Avenue. So another 10 minutes. Talk for more. Come on. Another 10 minutes. Juhi, what have you got to say, sweetheart?
Oh my God, I was wondering, Venerable, why have you lost weight?
Who?
You.
It's called old age.
No,
I'm
no,
shrinking up
no.
here, and all the fat is around my bum and my stomach.
No, it's something else. I thought you were looking like much healthier.
Oh, I see. I don't know, darling. Maybe I am. Who knows? I don't know. Well, thank you anyway. I'm glad.
But you're feeling okay? Otherwise,
I'm
you're
totally fine.
Okay, great. Because I got nervous.
Thank you.
Venerable Katie, in the morning meditations, she mentioned that, oh, Venerable Robina is not feeling well these days. And I'm like,
Who said?
no.
Tell her to shut up. I'm feeling fine.
Okay.
She's speaking nonsense. I feel totally fine.
Okay, good to see. Good to see you.
What other
Yes.
questions? Yeah, anything else, people? Any other questions to bring up? I've got 10 minutes. No? Yes.
Thanks. I'll see if I can articulate this
Okay.
succinctly. We all have accumulated karma to be experiencing things a certain way, and maybe when it comes especially to teachings, how do we balance the reality of the karma we sort of have with using discernment and having a maybe healthy skepticism about teachings? And so I guess the question
About what? Skepticism about what?
about just sort of not just blindly believing what
Oh,
we hear.
okay.
So sort of that tension between.
No, I hear you. No, okay. No, it's an important question, and I think the answer is really helpful and clear. If you are learning math, you don't say when you decided to learn math, and your assumption is you've checked on the teachers and you know math is valid and you've seen mathematicians, it's fairly easy to prove it's a valid body of knowledge, right? You do not say, how do I treat this with healthy skepticism? You buy into the system 100% because you've already proved logically, even with inferential certainty, that there are mathematicians out there. Because you'll never learn math if you keep being skeptical. That's why you go to the checking first. But we don't think religion's like that. We think, so then if we become fanatic, that's a problem. Fanatic and become fundamentalist and have a mental breakdown because someone dares to argue with 1 + 1 might be 3. You go crazy. That's foolish. So you got to check first. And that's why I keep saying, okay, if you're a Christian, you cannot prove that what God says is right, because by definition you become God and you can't say that. So you need faith and confidence, and you would not want skepticism. But if you're healthy about your faith, it wouldn't be fanatic. Many people become fanatic. The Buddhism, you can also say you have faith, but you also have faith in the math teacher. Then they tell you that 1 + 1 is 3. Okay, you prove it to you go home and do your proving it. Then they bring you multiplication. You go crazy. What's this one? And then they prove it again. So you've got to be intelligent, but you can't have skepticism as if it's something useful, because you already prove the teacher's valid. So you can't have it both ways. If you're trying to learn Bach, you've got to believe the notes on the piece of paper. You see what I'm trying to say? So you take it as your working hypothesis, and the proof of it comes when you do your homework. You get my point? Not fanatic. Not blind and stupid. You've got to be prepared to discuss. You've got to prove me 1 + 1 is 2, not just blindly believe it. Get the proof, see it, and then intellectually. And this is my point. I feel this is so important. We don't think of religion like that. We think it as belief, and that's the way it is with the Creator. That's not what we're talking here. So my feeling is this: if any body of knowledge, and this is what I'm talking about, whether it's math, acupuncture, or Buddhist philosophy, if it is a valid body of knowledge, we've got to consider that possibility, not just We think of religion as a random set of random things. It just all pops up out of the blue. Forget that. Buddhism is said to be a coherent, especially the way they studied in the Tibetan monastic university system coming from India, this brilliant system of study and philosophical analysis and debate. It's all there up for grabs, but it's all there. The system is there. Let me finish this sentence. If it is a valid body of knowledge, if it is, it has to be first coherent intellectually and theoretically. So then you take it as your working hypothesis. And if you, like Dalai Lama said, if you go one step at a time, tick the box, and then you discover what Buddha says is wrong, you must reject him, just like you would Einstein. That's the approach.
That's hopeful. And so I guess maybe to better phrase the question, is there a role for discernment?
Of course, it's all discernment.
And the discernment is in sort of accepting that set of theories, beliefs.
Not beliefs, we'll never use the word belief. Set of theories. Karma is a presentation of the Buddha's and the experiential observation of how the universe is, just like Einstein. I'm not kidding. So you have to have skepticism. They have debate as a necessary part of it. You shouldn't be afraid of anything. You should positive 1 + 1 is 3. Let's prove it's not right. Don't be scared. Oh no, it's 1 + 1 is 2. That's where the fundamentalism comes in. But we've got to recognize, we've got to try and acknowledge that it's a body of knowledge that's come from people's experience, not some from on high that you believe in. And you've got to want to prove it. That's why I say use it as your working hypothesis. It's the only way to go. And then you won't be scared of hearing anything opposite. It won't freak you out. If you're fundamentalist, you can't bear anything else. You panic attack and kill each other, which is the trouble. So it's got to be skepticism and using logic and analysis. And when you study the mind in Buddhism, it goes to incredible sophisticated depth about exactly this process. It's utterly fascinating. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Venerable?
Yeah.
So could you talk to what is the mind of fundamentalism?
It's called ignorance, ego grasping. It's very rigid and fixed and black and white, and there's no space, and there's panic and fear and drama. That's it. That's what a fundamentalist mind is deep ignorance.
Okay. So that's the basis, but that's the basis of a lot of delusions. So what particularly is the basis of?
Sorry, what, darling?
Particularly is the basis of a person, of somebody who believes fundamentally that this is correct and
I don't understand your question, Sonny. Start again. What's the question?
The question is like, what is the mind of the person who says, this is the truth, this is what I believe is true?
No, not believe. No. I will tell you that 1 + 1 is 2. I have to have proved it first. Then I will tell you with certainty 1 + 1 is 2. I am certain it's correct. I've done my proof. That's not fundamentalism, that's fact.
That's right. So what, and then I'm on the other side and I say, no, you're wrong.
Well, prove it to me. And then if you are right, I will accept it.
Okay, and if you say prove it, then the fundamentalist will say.
But I don't care about I'm not interested in fundamentalists. I don't care about them. Who cares? I'm looking at my own mind.
Understand where they're coming from.
I don't know. I already know where they're coming from. They've got delusions. They've got ignorance. They've got ego grasping and panic and fear. I'm not trying to prove things to fundamentalists. That's wasting your time. Prove it to yourself. I've got to go. I've got to go. Goodbye, people. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. See you next time. I don't know when, where. When am I coming back? Monday, something. Never mind. Sometime. Huh? 2 weeks. No Mondays. I think Mondays have been taken over by somebody else.
For a couple of weeks and then we go back to
We'll go to Mondays, okay. So I'll see you somewhere sometime again, darlings. So happy to see you all. Thank you, Jung Trup Sem Trog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Gu Chig, Ke Pa Nyam Pa Me Pa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Po Bo Shok. And we didn't say the prayers, but maybe before I'm going to go, I have to go. So maybe please, Sunny, can you get the prayer, just the long life prayer of His Holiness Dalai Lama, the swift return prayer for our precious Lama Zopa. Can you please do that? Tell her what I said. Goodbye, I've got to go. Don't go though, you're going to see the swift prayer of Dalai Lama.